near you.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, Gary. That's what I'm talking about when somebody says amen. That's right. So welcome, Catherine, Roger Blair, Denise, Rosemary. What do you got, Chris? Denise, Liana, Curtis with this chicken. We got a VIP in the house, ladies and gentlemen. We got Mr. Clean from TikTok. Nice to see you there. We got Amy in the house. Hello, Amy. Oh, Denise. Yes, a little twisted. Are you little crazy tonight? Well, we said it, Rosemary. So we are broadcasting on the Dutch network, Japanese network, China network, UK network, Britain network, all around the world network tonight. So interesting. Penny Van's in the house. So, Christopher, how are you doing there, kind sir?
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic here tonight.
So, interesting crime show. I talked to Melinda, and hello there, Roger. Welcome. And she's like, so how did I do it? I was like, always spot on. So, round of applause there, everybody. So I sent a picture of the crime guy. So yes. So welcome on a Friday evening, broadcasting live out outside Louisville, Kentucky, and nice to see everybody. And so Christopher is going to take us on a journey of Atlantis. Is that correct?
Oh yes, we got a great show here tonight. You're going to be seeing some photographs, lots of photographs, and you're going to be hearing some actual proof of the existence of Atlantis.
Do you think it was real?
I 100% believe it was real. At one point in time, I believe anything's possible, but I do believe in Atlantis.
So do you believe Plato?
I do.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. So Christopher, take us on this journey and welcome all of our TikTok family members that are just now tuning in. Cheeros. Hopefully enjoyed the shows, and take us away, Christopher.
All right. Well, we're talking about Atlantis, the legendary island that sank beneath the waves in the distant past, taking down with it an advanced civilization. It is possible that we will find, or importantly, did find the existence of Atlantis. Now, the short answer to was Atlantis a real place? All available evidence indicates that the philosopher Plato, sometime around 360 BC, invented the island nation in order to illustrate a point about the dangers of aggressive imperialism. Now, in Plato's telling, Atlantis was no utopia. Rather, it was a foil for an idealized version of Athens from a long before Plato's time. Now, this ancient Athens was very similar to Plato's notion of the ideal state. A professor of philosophy at Ambert's College. Now, Plato laid out the details for what would be such a state would look like in his famous work, The Republic. Now, in Plato's text, Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined. That's rather large. Now, which in Plato's time would have referred to modern-day northern Africa and over half of Turkey. It was situated in the Atlantic Ocean, somewhere outward from the Strait of Gibraltar. It's a landmass large enough that if it really existed somewhere underwater in the Atlantic, it would certainly appear on sonar maps or the ocean floor. So, how did Atlantis come to represent a lost utopia civilization? For that, you can mostly blame or thank Ignatius Donnelly. Now, in 1882, the former U.S. Congressman published Atlantis, the World. The book laid out 13 hypotheses centered on the idea that Atlantis had truly existed and indeed represented a place where early mankind dwelled for ages in peace and happiness. According to Donnelly, Atlantis was the original source of many ancient civilizations around the world. If one followed the clues in Plato's writing, Donnelly believed mankind could have formed Atlantis. It would be hard to overstate the impact that this introductory book had on future Atlantopia. Now, 3 continents in search of the legendary sunken city. It gave this sort of template that people could start to follow in decades to come. Donnelly was inspired, says Adams, by a remarkable discovery in early 1870. 1870, an amateur archaeologist had used Homer's in 1870, an amateur archaeologist had used Homer's title to perpetrate unearth the legendary city. If Troy Long thought to be fictional was real, why shouldn't Atlantis be real? In the years after Columbus brought news of the New World back to Europe, many claimed that America was fabled Atlantis. He thought that America was fabled Atlantis, but the search really gained steam in 20th century and 21st centuries. Some researchers have pointed to a volcanic eruption that destroyed parts of Atlantis Island around 1600 BC, wiping out settlements, and in 2018, a team announced to much fanfare that they had found concrete proof that Atlantis did exist. Key evidence included a series of circles in a national park in Spain that turned out to be experimental ponds created in 2004 and 2005 for a study involving sublation. Kenneth Fieber, a professor of Central Connecticut State University, has dealt with claims of Atlantis for much of his professional career, and while there is no evidence that the lost city of Atlantis as described by Plato actually existed, says Faber, people who get hooked by that story can sometimes be drawn into real archaeology. As a discipline, we don't do enough practical work, says Faber, to know a lot about other off mythological locations like Stonehenge or the Egyptians or pyramids or cities built by the Aztecs. He says, but if we were stuck with its people seeing documentaries about Atlantis or ancient aliens, and that's what gets them curious. We need to be able to run with that. Now you're going to hear and see some photos throughout the night here of proof of Atlantis' existence in different states and areas where they have actually found evidence of Atlantis. And we're going to show a photograph right now. Let me do a screen share, and we will bring out our first photograph here. 1 second.
So why would Plato and everybody else back then talk about Atlantis? Why would all the archaeologists and history buffs talk about the technology they had, right?
Exactly.
The advanced civilization. Right? So we do talk about futuristic things, but there was documentation in maps, in descriptions that were beyond belief in such great detail that states that such a place did exist. I'm just saying, ladies and gentlemen, how can you not believe?
That's exactly, and we're going to see a picture. These are the circles. You're about to see the circles where they have found to be studies of proving the existence of Atlantis. We're going to do a screen share here. Try this again. It would not let me share screen. Hold on here. All right, here we go. Let's try this again, and we're off. These are the circles where they believe that this is further proof that Atlantis did exist. And you can see the one on the left and the one on the right. I think the one on the left is more of a photoshopped photo, but the one on the right, I believe, is the original photo that they took that shows the circles. And hope everybody can see that. I know it is a small photo. All right, getting back to what you're going to hear now is you're going to hear proof and see more photos that prove the existence of Atlantis. Let me do a prominent geological circular feature in the Sahara deserts. The ancient structures, also known as the Eye of the Sahara or the Blue Eyes of Africa, was initially interpreted as an asteroid impact structure due to a circular formation. Measuring nearly 50 kilometers across and visible from space, it's now argued to be the remains of a highly symmetrical and deeply aerated geological dome that collapsed. Greek philosopher Plato believed Atlantis was circular and divided into circles of land and water, creating an impossible barrier of mud when it was sunk by an earthquake. A mountain was said to shelter the city by north and Great Plains to the south, with pillars lying to the front of the island. These were the Pillars of Hercules. An earthen structure of unknown origin located on the northwest coast of Africa, the rigid structure was created about 100 million years ago. It is very large, with similar measurements to those Plato suggests Atlantis was. He described that nearby mountains as representatives of the gods, and located to the north, the exact location of the eye of the mountains. Plato said that the sea was to the south and the desert bordered the area. And when you look at the satellite images of the eye, you can see the desert, the river, and water lines that he mentions clearly visible throughout the landscape. Now, also, further proof we're going to read about here this is very interesting. This is the Tantalus, Turkey. Now, the original lost kingdom of Atlantis has been found according to British archaeologist Peter James. The London specialist in Near Eastern ancient history believes that the city is not in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, as previously thought, but in the interiors of Turkey. Using 6 classical sources, Nick James reconstructed a historical legend on what the story of Atlantis was originally based. The legend suggests that Atlantis was in fact a real city in the west of Asia Minor called the Tantalus, and it was destroyed by an earthquake and flooding after 1400 BCs. Primarily finding of the suggested location found a now dried up lake that Mr. James believes once covered the site. After piecing together evidence from works by classical authors, he concluded that Atlantis was the key figure in the Atlantis legend, was inspired by semi-legendary Antonio King. The king is believed to have ruled over a doomed city called Sipasla, or Siplis, but now known as Tantalus. Tantalus is said to have controlled an empire that stretched from the Aegean Sea to the center of Anatolia. It may have also included sections of both Cyprus and Israel before it was absorbed by 50 years later into the Hitler territory. This legend bears a striking resemblance to the Atlantis story, with just one significant difference: its location. We're going to show you a photo of that right now. I'll do a screen share, and you'll see bring that photo up here for everybody to look at. Let's see. All right, do a screen share here, and everybody can see this photo. This is what he was referring to. Let's do a screen share. And yes, there are over 14 different photographs you'll be seeing here tonight that goes along with what we are discussing. And some of these if you think about it, you almost can definitely believe that Atlantis does exist. And here's one of the photos of the location he is referring to, and this is, you can see the mountains in the background, and he thinks Atlantis was within this area. And again, sorry for the small photos. We will continue on here. If anybody has any questions or anything about Atlantis or anything they want to add, please put it in the chat. Put it in capital letters. We'll get it right out. Now, a team of English historians believe that they have found the location of the lost city of Atlantis. Using satellite imagery, the experts say that ancient Spanish ruins may hold the key to solving one of the world's most intriguing mysteries. The researchers believe the city was built by mysterious ancient people known as the Atlanteans, with their pictures showing remains of harbor wall measuring 5.5 miles long in southern Spain. This wall was mentioned by Plato, who wrote about the wall, saying it was 50 stadia long, making it 5.5 miles on today's measurement scale. Historians believe the area inside the national park was once a vast island sea maritime. Historian Tim Akers, head of the research of private satellite imaging from the Merlin Burrows, collected samples for scientific testing and sent them to a lab in Mondia, Italy, that was able to test the ancient Romans found. Now, the results of the laboratory analysis of Pantia found the Spanish site showed it was ancient combination of metals described in detail by Plato as being the building material used to construct the kingdom of Atlantis. Merlin Burrows aren't the first to lay claim to the theory that Atlantis is in the southern Spain, and they probably won't be the last. But until solid evidence surfaces, we can't prove that this fact is indeed relevant. You're going to see a photo.
What is interesting is I don't think a lot of people realize that I sank, and don't quote me, but in 1914, I think an archaeologist, Milo Thatch, did believe that Atlantis did exist, and that he actually had the Smithsonian Institution fund an expedition to discover it. And he met with a millionaire, I think by the name of Preston Whitmore, was an old friend of Milo's late grandfather. And they made a bet to fund the expedition to Atlantis. And somehow he got a book. It was a journal from shepherds describing the history and the path to Atlantis. So Isn't that interesting? How is that possible? I'm just saying, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Jamie Johnson. Welcome. Liana. All right,
Hello,
Chris.
Jamie. Hello, everybody. Hello, Rachel, for watching. Thank you very much. And we're going to see a photo right now of the all right, this is a photo of the coast of Spain you're about to see here, where they think Atlantis, and here we go. Oh, let me bring this here. All right. There is a photo. You can see the coast of Spain. This is where they think Atlantis more or less originated from. And as you can see, again, small photos, but there again, this is, again, further proof that Atlantis did exist. And when you put all this evidence together, you know that Atlantis is actually somewhere, or at least at one point it was. All right, moving on here. Plato's description of how mythological islands of Atlantis was destroyed has strong similarities to the story of the Minoa Troy. Can't pronounce the word. I do apologize for that. That also disappeared with a trace in the 17th century. Previously located in Santorini, the settlement of Actrois intriguing history dates back to a staggering 7,000 years. From humble beginnings, the small fishing village grew to become an important trading post, a busy little city with extensive sewage systems, paved streets, and many stone buildings. However, the eruption of Mount Theba, followed by a powerful tsunami, put an end to the city, leaving it in tatters and completely uninhabitable. The city's connection to Atlantis was conveyed to Solo during one of his trips to Egypt. Egyptian priests believed that Atlanteans once had a divine powers. These were gradually lost in order to gain back powers. At least the humankind they destroyed they decided to travel around the Mediterranean, conquering other islands until they were eventually defeated by the Atlanteans. The gods, angry at their behavior and believed to have destroyed Atlantis as punishment. So we're saying the gods might have destroyed Atlantis as punishment. We're going to do another screen share and show you another photo of that.
Yeah, so I mean, there's biblical reference. You got the Book of Enoch, other books. You have wars that taken place. It's been documented. Plato, other historians. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, really? I'm just saying. Yes.
Here's a photo. You'll see this. Make it up full screen here for you. And there we go. This is a photo of what he is referring to. And they believe, like I said, the gods destroyed Atlantis as punishment. I'm not sure if that's true. I don't believe that theory, but it is, I guess anything's possible. Like I said.
Well, think about Pompeii, right? When the volcano erupted, people were not able to evacuate it. They were covered in ash as they sat encapsulated in time. That today, that the fruit is still consumable, allegedly, if they remove the volcanic ash. So, yeah, very interesting.
All right. Doggerland. We're going to be talking about that because forming part of the North Sea, Doggerland once stretched all the way from the east coast of England to Scotland, Denmark, left dry for several thousand years following the end of the Ice Age. Doggerland was home to a thriving Mesolithic population. Described as the true heart of Europe by geologist Richard Bates, it struggled for several millennia against rising sea levels and eventually succumbed following a sudden catastrophic between 62,000 BC and 55,000 BC, with suggestions its destruction was connected to the Stogner Islands. Doggerland could also be considered as another possible location for Plato's Atlantis. This theory was given further weight in 2012 when, at a meeting in the British Royal Society, a book published by Frenchman Jean Dwells published in 19 discussed. This theory was given further weight in 2012 when a meeting of the British Royal Society with a book published by Frenchman Jean Dwell was discussed. Published in 1999, the book presented a strong case for the notorious elusive Great Plan of Atlantis being situated on the now submerged land in the North Sea. Although surveyed many times, researchers recently came across a fossilized forest below the waves at Doggerland, renewing hope of one day finding the lost human settlement. So basically what they're saying is that they have come across a fossilized forest below the waves that could be the lost human settlement. So we're going to show you a photo of this.
Makes you wonder. I mean, something happened. It was there.
Oh, yes. Do a screen share and we will show you this is a map that you're about to see showing what they're referring to, Dogma. And we're going to bring that up here, full screen. And there we go. And you can see on the map where they're referring to, and that there's the dogma right there in the center where my pointer is. If you can see that, probably can't see the pointer, but this is further proof of the existence of Atlantis as we're counting down. We got a few more to go yet here, and if anybody has any questions or anything, put them in the chat box. We would love to hear from you. All right, now we're talking about Morocco.
All right, and I've got something for you, Christopher, and action. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Ben, you would love that. Yeah, he's a giant fan of your work. I like to hear that. Well, I'm a fan of his work, but I don't happen to agree on this one. Well, I mean, I don't even know if he agrees. I think he's just speculating. Yeah. He's not dogmatic. Like, he doesn't have like a rigid perspective on this. Yeah, here you can see there's the recat structure. What is interesting, though, is look at this. You've got this structure up here, the terminate tenoma. I forget how you pronounce that. I knew how to pronounce it, but anyways, that's an impact crater there. There's one here. We can actually, if we go back, the Tenumur crater in Mauritania, that's impact, and the Temimichat. That's it. So what's interesting though, check this out. There's one, there's two, and here's the recat structure. They fall in a perfect alignment. What's the explanation there? I don't know. Could just be coincidence, right? Could be coincidence, yeah. One of the things that he said about the recut structure was that around it, the white appears to be salt. Which could be. And I mean, see, the rim rock of this is late Cretaceous, about 90 million years old. So at that point, it was below the ocean, right? So it's been uplifted. I think this thing is about 1,400 or 1,500 feet above sea level, if memory serves me correct. So it's been eroded. You see, this whole thing here is like an erosion. You had a massive amount of water that came down over this, and most likely is what exposed this thing to the surface. It was probably buried. Let's see here. So right there is, from Plato, that's the ringed city of Atlantis to scale. The concentric rings. The concentric ring. So this is the actual scale superimposed onto the recat structure. So it's much smaller scale. Yeah. But Plato's scale was based on what? The stade. It was based on the stade, which is roughly 607 feet. It's where we get the word stadium from. Oh, wow. Yeah, because that was the length of a stadium in ancient Greece. So when you look at Plato's version of this, sorry to take you on this detour, but I was just curious. When you look at Plato's version of Atlantis, is there an area of the world that seems likely? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. You better watch my 6-hour presentation. Okay, Joe. I will. Yeah, no, but I look, it's detailed. That's why even in 6 hours, I can't really spell it. In my podcast I did, the first 9 episodes, 2 hours each, were devoted to, I thought, well, let's kick it off with Atlantis. 18 hours of Atlantis. 18 hours of it. The last episode 9 was devoted to the recat structure. Wow. So I had eight hours, so 16 hours, but we had some chatter and things like that in there, so maybe more like 12 or 14 hours. So, you know who Johanna James is? No. She is a British actress who started doing this she's a really cool lady. She's very interested in all this kind of stuff. Very smart.
It's fascinating because this guy dedicated so many hours to Plato's description and took your pictures that you're showing and overlaid it on the satellite images and superimposed it and did his research with the historical books and was like, this is Atlantis, ladies and gentlemen. This is it. And what he was saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you look at the Earth and look at the crustaceans period and look at the rocks in the structure about how far this is above and below sea level, and look at where the rocks is in the soil, that the Earth had shifted, and what happened? It covered Atlantis. It buried Atlantis. It consumed Atlantis. Atlantis, what? Disappeared. Anyways, I just wanted to show that little clip. There, go ahead. Go ahead, Christopher.
Oh, it's a great clip. I'm sure everybody enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed it. And we're going to continue on here. More of proof there again of Atlantis. Now we're talking about Morocco. Now, for centuries, experts have had us believe that the lost city of Atlantis ruins are to be found somewhere under the sea. But could this theory be false? Are they on land somewhere? Michael Humner, a German computer expert, believes the remains of Atlantis are hiding in plain sight in southwest Morocco. He said a tsunami had overwhelmed this ancient metropolis, flattering it 2,000 years ago. Using clues left by Plato, Hubner has calculated GPS coordinates of the lost city and believes the remains may have been left undiscovered for nearly half the century. The site has many of the 51 clues left by Plato, including being surrounded by concentric cities, a far cry from previous ideas about Atlantis. Hubner is not alone in his beliefs, with other enthusiastic Atlanteans seekers utilizing clues from obscured Babylonian myths or unpublished documents from the secret archives to pinpoint its supposed location. You're going to see a photo of that here in just a second of Morocco. Let me bring that photo up.
Do you think if they found Atlantis, you think they would tell us? I don't think so.
I don't think they would either, to be honest. They keep it to themselves for as long as they could. And we're going to do a screen share. You're going to see Morocco, what they're discussing about. And this should be an interesting photograph. I know it is. And we're going to see that right about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And there is Morocco in the photographs there. This is where they think Atlantis is buried. All right, moving on to the next one. We're counting them down here. We're at number 9, believe it or not, in the proof of Atlantis' existence. Now we're talking about Crete. Some scholars place Atlantis at Crete. They believe it collapsed at the hands of a volcano eruption in the mid of the 2nd millennium BC. Was Plato's theory inspired by an actual event in his own time, the earthquake of 373 BC, that brought the Greek city of Hikis crashing into the sea? There are more mythological tales, legends, and real-life events surrounding this mysterious island that just about anywhere else in the world has its origins Crete. A beautiful island, Crete is the 5th largest in the Mediterranean and home to the ancient village of Palestro, where broken pottery buildings, materials, and even cattle bones have been found washed up along its coastline. Soil scientist Hendrik Bruins and archaeologist Sandy McGilloway examined layers of soils and discovered they contain microorganisms that can only be found in the soil on the ocean's floor. Now, to have reached the coastline, a powerful tsunami must have been responsible. The presence of Thurin and Punis provided additional proof that a volcano caused the tsunami, and carbon dating on a cow bone confirms it was deposited there around 1600 BC, the same time that Thera erupted. We may never know for sure if Crete was Atlantis. However, this theory may explain the downfall of Europe's first great civilization. And you're going to see a photo of Crete in just about a few seconds. All right, the screen share, and this is a picture of Crete. A photo of what they think Crete looked like, and there's the photo of it. You can see like a building underneath the ocean here. I'm assuming a building, and you can see all the little artifacts. But they're thinking this is where this was Atlantis. Is what they're thinking. And if you think it is or think it's not, put it in the chat room. Let's hear. And moving on, we're at to number 8, and this is the Atlantic Ocean, Canary Islands. A rock formation hiding in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean has archaeologists guessing its origins, with many believing it's the remains of Atlantis. Having broken away from a group of islands 10,000 years ago, a bombshell documentary has claimed it is the much talked about mythical city. Historians believe the Canary Islands may have once been linked together with much larger pieces of land, sinking together, the water as a result of rising sea levels and a huge earthquake. The 2018 series on Amazon, The Proof That Left Historians Speechless documentary revealed the Atlantis remains may very well be still hiding below the Atlantic Sea. However, the strong Gulf streams make the waters too treacherous to check. There are several facts about the island of Atlantis that are very rarely debated. It was said to be probably smaller than the southern Italy, and was somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean and close enough that ships were able to pass the Straits of the Gibraltar and enter the Mediterranean. Now, if Plato's description is to be believed, then the volcanic Canary Islands fit a great deal of these descriptors, including its volcanic properties, the fact that it was once an ancient trade route to the American, and evidence of ruins. We'll do a screen share, and you'll see the islands here in just a second. And we will do a screen share. And here we go. There's the islands, as you can see, and you can see what this is not an actual photograph; it's just a photo, made-up photo. But you can see what they're talking about, and then put it in the chat box. Chat room. We'd like to hear what your opinions are. Do you believe that any of this is proof of Atlantis, or do you think otherwise? Let us know.
I think it existed. I think that with history, the documentation, and everything else out there, the publications, the oral history, yes, absolutely.
I firmly agree. I do believe it existed. I do believe that wholeheartedly. And we're going to move on as we're getting closer and closer to that number one theory, the number one proof of Atlantis' existence. In 2009, a group of undersea archaeologists raised several eyebrows when they presented grainy images of a city-like formation at the bottom of the Caribbean. Although skeptics refrain from debunking them entirely, the scientists haven't helped their case, refusing to identify themselves. With the legitimacy of their claims up in the air, the scientists insist their snaps show a pattern on the seabed that could be the ruins of a city that predated Egypt's pyramids, which appeared after 2600 BC. Following the publication of this information in the Herald in Paris in 2009, historian and archaeologist Joe Alexander was asked for his opinion on the supposed find. He believes that Plato's description of Atlantis matches the area of the Caribbean basin depicted in the grainy images taken by the undersea archaeologist. In fact, he went so far as admitting there are no other places on Earth matching Plato's description of the Caribbean island. And you're going to see a photo of that here, of that island, Caribbean island, which is a beautiful, beautiful photo. And we'll do a screen share. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2. And there's the island that you're referring to, the Caribbean island, which she believes could hold the remains of Atlantis. And we're moving on. We're getting closer and closer to that number 1 spot. And we'll see if we can make it all the way to number 1. That number 6 is Malta. What is Malta? Well, experts believe that Malta could be the lost city of Atlantis. Aha. And Plato's writings on these mysterious islands could inadvertently back up this theory. He believes that a tsunami was behind the eradication of the ancient cities, one that happened at the same time Malta was struck by an unknown catastrophe. Evidence also points to the fact that Malta and its little sister island once formed part of Europe's and or Africa. Having been struck by some sort of natural disaster, the islands were formed. This fact was partially proven in 2013 when University of Malta marine scientists discovered that 20,000 years ago, the Maltese islands were connected to this land bridge. Now, the islands were much larger back then, with proof in its fossils and elephants, bears, reindeer, and more found in caves around the islands. Malta is now so small, there is no way it could possibly provide large animals with enough food and water. Therefore, it must have been larger at some point. Finally, Malta's ancient structures date back over 9,000 years ago, with archaeologists stating they are the oldest ruins in the world, most scattered around its islands. There will see a photo of Malta here in just a second. Now, I really like this photograph, so we're going to show this for everybody. And
yes, Twisted, enlighten us. Tell us why. Tell us and share your knowledge. I'll send you the link, Twisted, if you want to come on the show. Tim's like, yeah, Twisted.
Come on over, Twisted. More than merrier. And I want to thank everybody for watching here tonight. Rachel, Twisted, all my friends out there. And here is Malta, and this is a unique photograph, and this is what the Malta looked like. As you can see, could this been the lost city of Atlantis at some point? Could it have had, proof of Atlantis' existence? I do believe so. All right, Spartle Island. Yet another candidate for the lost city was published in paper written by Mark Andrew Gustner in the 2005. Now the paper points to the submerged island of Spartle, west of the Straits of Gibraltar, as being the location of the lost ancient city. Spartle is said to have plunged 60 meters beneath the surface in the Gulf of Cadiz at the end of the most recent ice age. Melting glaciers had caused the sea levels to rise again. Geological evidence shows that a large earthquake and a tsunami hit the same island some 12,000 years ago. Both the timing and location are outlined in Plato's writings. Using sea level measurements, Spartle estimated the island to be less than 500 meters in diameter, having been reduced to wave-swept rock inlets. The fact alone would make it impossibly small for a sophisticated city. Saying it's too small to be anywhere near Atlantis, but Glutchner believes that the island may have sunk further since those times, with 8 earthquakes happening to the area since Atlantis. It is believed to have sunk. Each earthquake may have caused the sea floor to drop several meters and whistled the island away. Spartle could have been 40 meters higher 12,000 years ago and measured more than 2 kilometers. A promising candidate study provides further support for Plato's writings, but hard proof is yet to be found. Let's do a photo screen share and show you a photo of Spartle. And this is what he was referring to, or do a screen share.
Right after this one, give us the number 1 location, Christopher. I'm done.
All right. Here's the photograph. It's kind of hard to see the wording right. I can put this in chat box or something. Anybody wants to see it up closer. We'll move on to we're down to the number 1 location.
Interesting. That's very fascinating. All right, go ahead, Christopher.
And here is the number 1. We're going to skip the last 2, and we're going to move straight to number 1 to get everybody a little excitement here. Number 1, Plato's invention. Now, if much of what Greek philosopher Plato says is true, then we are to believe that the founders of Atlantis were half god and half human. They are said to have created a highly desirable society for civilization, made up islands separated by wide moats and linked by canal. These islands contained an abundance of precious treasures and rare exotic wildlife. Now, according to Plato, Atlantis existed about 9,000 years before his time. However, few, if any, scientists think it existed at all. Although not entirely convinced of Plato's theory, ocean explorer Robert Ballard, the National Geographic explorer in residence, says the legend of Atlantis is a logical one. With catastrophic floods and volcanoes common throughout history, Plato's story mirrors that of the massive earthquake that devastated the islands of San Antonio about 3,600 years ago. The minnows who lived there disappeared overnight. However, Ballard doesn't believe Santoria was Atlantis, as the timing is all wrong. However, he believes that Plato made up Atlantis as a clever plot for his 2 dialogues, both written about 360 BC. He says there are no other records of the mysterious island anywhere, and with so many Greek texts, Ballard finds it unusable that such a remarkable place has never been mentioned even in passing. And with the omission of Plato's theories about Atlantis, almost any proposed location can be made to fit with its descriptors. There is just simply no evidence prior to Plato's writing about it. With so many theories surrounding the existence of the lost city of Atlantis, it is difficult to know who to believe. It is situated in the Atlantic Ocean, Turkey, perhaps even the Mediterranean Sea or the Caribbean Sea. Did it even exist at all? Greek philosopher Plato placed Atlantis, being the Pillars of Hercules, the strait between Greek philosopher Plato placed Atlantis beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the strait between the city of Tusani. However, writer and journalist Friu believes it remains might lie in the Sardinia. One of the founders of Italy, Daily Republic, has been investigating this subject of the lost city for more than a decade. Visited in 2015, where he had a dozen or so Italian scientists, including archaeologists, archivists, and an expert on tidal waves, viewed the island of land by the air. What they found resembled a submerged mud. The team found a variety of ceramics, lamps, and even stones, metals, and implements, knives, chests, and even arrow tips, all seemingly dumped as far as the original owners were in a hurry to leave. Although remarkable, these archaeologists' finds attract very little attention until the mid-20th centuries. However, we know that the island was home to many megalithic fortresses with a central tower, dating back to the middle of the Bronze Age, between 16th and 12th century BC, many of which have vanished under the pillars of earth. Those on high grounds have spared, with the regressive structures, numbers having raised from 9,000 to 20,000 in the last 20 years. Could this have been proof of the existence of the lost city of Atlantis? We'll never know.
Interesting.
And if anybody has anything, put it in the chat room. We'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic, Christopher. That was a lot of work you put into it. So, yes. Get ready, Twisted said, to go down some rabbit holes. You know, I love rabbit holes because you never which hole I'm going to come out of. But, yes. Fascinating. Froze what happened. Oh, go back and watch it, Tim. Replay. Yeah, so fantastic. So tune in tomorrow. We had the TikTok family starting their debut on the Outlaw Channel, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. The Tripod Trifecta. So tune in. That's going to be interesting. And what is that on your head?
That is a pickle I wore to a party last week.
A pickle? It looks like a green bean. That's cute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, from coast to coast, around the world, ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you tomorrow night. And if you need anything, reach out to us. If not, I will see you on TikTok. And be safe and Godspeed. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.